I welcome you as the chairman of today's meeting, Mr. President. I am grateful for your invitation on such an important issue as maritime security. We thank today's speakers for the information provided. Challenges and threats at sea are becoming more and more diverse. Some of them, including piracy and the link between crime and international terrorism, really fall under the competence of the Security Council. The actions taken in accordance with its central role, including the adoption of the Resolution 1851 in December 2008 on the establishment of a contact group for the fight against piracy on the Somali coast, allowed to generalize the phenomenon of piracy in the 21st century. Measures were also taken to strengthen the maritime and law enforcement potential of a number of regional states. Dozens of pirates were detained and charged with criminal liability. The Russian Federation was actively involved in these efforts, provided its maritime forces to accompany civil courts, and took part in the work of specialized regional formats. At the same time, serious concerns continue to be raised about the acts of maritime piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. A number of similar incidents were accompanied by the capture of hostages of Russian sailors. In order to improve the combat capability and technical equipment of the coastal security forces of the countries of the region, we are increasing the financial assistance and funds of the annual voluntary contribution of the Russian Federation to the UN Drug and Crime Control Fund. As for terrorism at sea, it is a rare occurrence. Of the resonant terrorist attacks of such a plan, only the explosion of the branches of the Russian gas pipelines into the Nord Stream 1 and 2 of the Baltic Sea in September 2022 can be mentioned. This incident, which became possible, as we all understand, in the conditions of the agitated anti-Russian line of the previous U.S. administration, led by Joe Biden, certainly created serious risks for the international peace and security. At the same time, any of our attempts to initiate an independent international investigation of this criminal act, or to take other measures on the line of the Security Council, were invariably blocked by its members from a number of Western countries, which makes us think again about the circumstances of the preparation and implementation of this act of terrorism. In support of their position, they, as we all remember, relied on the full trust of the national investigations of Germany, Denmark, and Sweden, expressing the boundless confidence that they would be effective and reliable in advance. As you know, the effective, in quotation marks, investigations of Denmark and Sweden ended with a zero result. The authorities of the Federal Republic of Germany are still dragging time and are consistently avoiding providing substantive information about the course of the investigation, both to the Security Council and to the entire international community, which is fueled by a variety of insinuations and absolutely unlawful versions of the international media. However, no matter how hard Berlin and those who artificially delay the completion of the German investigation are tempted, the truth will still come out, and all those guilty will be found and punished. Mr. Chairman, moving on to the issues of maritime crime, I would like to emphasize that they do not fall under the competence of the Security Council. Other profile international structures should deal with them. In particular, the development of a unified approach to the fight against organized crime as a whole, including its maritime component, relates to the leadership of the General Assembly, the auxiliary bodies, and the CPSU, primarily the Commission on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice. To date, an impressive base of decisions of these bodies on various aspects of countering transnational crime has been developed. In addition, a whole system of specialized organizations has been formed and is functioning successfully. This includes Interpol, the General Secretary of which is present in our room today, which is designed to increase the effectiveness of international cooperation in responding to such threats. It is difficult to overestimate the significance of bilateral cooperation in the format of mutual legal assistance in criminal cases. Without it, it is impossible to seriously deal with transnational crime. It is extremely important that this mechanism functions on a clear and predictable basis, without politicization and double standards. As you know, there are serious problems with this today. Requests from Russian competent bodies in most Western countries are not carried out, even in cases when this is directly provided by the provisions of the corresponding international treaties or the resolution of the Security Council. This is done exclusively for political reasons. As a result of the win, transnational crime is found to be enjoying complete impunity. The notes to today's meeting mention the factors of climate change. We would like to emphasize that their monitoring, development of measures of response, and adaptation to the competence of the Security Council also do not fall short. For this purpose, specialized mechanisms based on specialized international legal instruments are created and function. First of all, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change of 1992. Attempts to use environmental issues as a pretext for strengthening measures in the field of security are unacceptable. In general, it should be noted that the topic of climate change is increasingly becoming a hostage of various kinds of political speculations and delusional constructions, which are not supported by theory or practice. In contrast, the damage to maritime trade, the freedom of shipping, and the stability of global supply chains from one-sided coercive measures of Western countries is absolutely real. This tool is used in violation of international law to maintain one's own domination and carry out unfair competition in non-economic ways. Stability and predictability of maritime logistics are important for all countries, and for small island states or coastal developing countries in general, it is a matter of survival. Unfortunately, more and more often we have to observe actions aimed at creating artificial obstacles and threats in this regard. One-sided coercive measures are a priori illegal and, due to their effect, contradict international law. This fact does not prevent states using the UN Framework Convention to refer to attempts to bypass such, I repeat, absolutely illegal measures to hang a label on a ship belonging to the so-called shadow fleet. I would like to stress that this term has no legal connotation, and there is no transparent international mechanism behind it. In other words, this is nothing more than a violation by Western countries, behind which there is a desire to maintain one's own domination in the world in any way. In practice, such actions lead only to complication of logistics and depreciation of goods for the end consumer. As a result, developing countries suffer the most from all this. Mr. Chairman, considering the issue of maritime security, we cannot but mention the actions of certain states aimed at suppressing tensions in regions located, often, thousands of nautical miles from their own borders. They are served as operations of the Navy in support of freedom of navigation, although in practice we are talking about frank provocations. A particular danger is a case of interception by Western countries based on maritime freedoms, including the freedom of navigation, the right to peaceful and transit passage. At the event of the Greek presidency in the Security Council in May, we talked about the drunken actions of the Estonian patrol ships, which tried to seize a tanker sailing in international waters. At that time, attempts were made twice to land a group of interceptors from a helicopter, and a boat of the Estonian Navy literally tried to seize a tanker. All this is under the same pretext, which I have mentioned today, and which has no international legal grounds, the pretext of the struggle with the so-called shadow fleet. As you know, the UN Convention on Marine Law of 1982 contains an exhaustive list of situations in which it is allowed to stop a vessel under someone else's flag for inspection. There is no mention of the so-called shadow fleet in this list or in the convention as a whole. The inviolability of maritime freedoms, as well as the principle of exclusive jurisdiction of the flag state in relation to the vessel in international waters, have a key role in ensuring the stable and predictable functioning of the international maritime trade system, In this regard, the actions of Estonia and its European support group have created a dangerous precedent. If their example is followed by other states, then global supply chains will be interrupted and maritime trade will stop. The use of NATO military maritime resources for such illegal actions is a direct path to military escalation and the creation of new risks for maritime security. Mr. Chairman, in conclusion, I would like to touch on the initiatives of the International Sea Safety Agency, which, in our opinion, are quite effective and sufficient, taking into account the efforts made at the national level as well as on the lines of existing regional and universal organizations. We urge everyone to focus on their improvement where it is necessary and not to complicate the context for their implementation, including due to the illegal steps I mentioned. Thank you.